Hello, everyone. Because of the live stream, we have to start right at 6. We realize people are going to be trailing in, so we just have to start right at 6 because Brandy says so, and frankly, I'm a little afraid of her. Before we get started, I wanted to tell you, whoever had the 2024 Tesla, the self-driving Tesla, it has left the lot, and it looks like it's doing some Uber work on its own. I actually made that joke up. I'm pretty proud of that.
We need to tell more jokes.
So we want to welcome you all here tonight to the second of our town hall meetings, and there will probably be one or two more. At our first one, we tried to give everybody as much information as we could, and along the way, people were wondering, "What's going on? What's going on?" Well, we were sort of like what you would say a duck does. It looked a little calm on the surface, but we were paddling furiously beneath. One of the reasons we had to keep things a little quiet as to what we were doing is because we have opposition that would like to know what we're doing, and we didn't want them to know. But we do want you to know, and we have more information tonight. Some of our information is going to be what you heard before. So some of you will wake you if you nod off. But we will have some. The other is whenever you have this large of a group of people who are in opposition to something, there will be some disagreements. And I remember the story of a man who was going to put on a conference, and he had people in his audience that didn't always agree, but he found a lamp that a genie came out of. And the genie says, "What are your wishes?" So he wished for 1,000 more wishes, of course. And he wished for great wealth and fame. And then he says, "What's your last wish?" He says, I wish that everybody in my group could get along. And he says, "Well, do you have some other wish?" And he says, "Yeah, I wish we could build a bridge over to Hawaii because I'm scared of flying." And so he says, "Well, can you give me the wish about everybody getting along?" He says, "Well, how big a bridge did you say you wanted?" So that's what we're up to. And tonight, this will be rebroadcast on YouTube, so you'll be able to hear that. And we do have a couple of dignitaries in the audience. I always want to introduce my wife, Tamara Wallace. She's from the city council. She's the one that kind of sounded the alarm on all this in some of her letters. And Christy Cregan, who was our mayor last year and did a fantastic job, as I saw her here. So this coalition was started with 4 organizations, which grew to 6, and then we had several organizations on Facebook that came along that we greatly appreciated. They were able to do some of the things that we were not able to do because of our limited scope that we agreed to work under. We have Steve Teixeira here. He's the government relations person for the Tahoe Chamber. And I'm the CEO of the South Tahoe Chamber. My name is Dwayne Wallace. Sharon Kerrigan is the executive vice president of the South Tahoe Association of Realtors, a star, and she is a star. Jerry Bindell, from the Lodging Association. Then we have the Joby Cephalou isn't here right now. He might be. He has a fishing business, and he often has to get up at 3 in the morning, so he might not be able to make it. But Sharon will fill you in on his part. That's from the Tahoe Keys Property Association. And then we also have Brennan Turian, who's with the South Tahoe Restaurant Association. However, we were the founders of the coalition, but really what the coalition is you. It's property owners who inherited a property, who had grandparents who built a little cabin up here and whose memories are tied up into this. When they walk into that cabin, it's like opening a family album. It's people who worked long and hard to be able to afford a retirement place. It's people who, for one reason or another, decided to move here from another place, but they're not done living in the other place yet. It's all those kinds of people, like I said, you who are here. We're going to do as much as we can to fill in some of the gaps, and then at the end, we're going to have what we call Stump the Band, where you write questions and you ask us questions. One of the big ones last time was about whether somebody could register to vote if they live somewhere else. We felt badly about that because at the time we hadn't really thought about how we would answer that question, and there are other people who could answer it. But one of the things we aren't is we're not a legal organization where we can give you legal advice. But the Secretary of State has that, and then there's a lot of people in the audience who've done more research than us. So we ourselves chose not to give that exact advice, but it's worth looking into on your own. And then you make that determination on your own. We're very fortunate also to have the fact that this was Name, Measure, N. It just kind of plays very nicely. Something broke our way for a change. So no on Measure N is noonmeasuren.com is where you'll be able to go to get the information you need. Steve and Jerry have done a great job of setting that up, and there's a lot of information. And we welcome any letters that you want to write that tell your story, because what we think is going to win this thing is the story of how you got your place and why it's yours and why nobody else should take it. Yeah, stopmeasurein.com. I'm always people have to correct me. So Steve's going to talk first about what the city of South Lake Tahoe and members of this community and coalition are doing to address affordable housing. Because it's a lie that something's not being done. There's quite a bit being done, and I think you'll be proud to hear that. Jerry's going to do a quick recap of what we did in the original town hall, where we talked about what the measure actually is, because our opposition wants to do anything but tell you exactly what's in it. So we urge people to go and make sure that they read that. Sharon is going to talk about some of the things that we're doing behind the scenes that we weren't able to tell you before, but we can be a little bit more upfront about, the ballot argument and things of that line. And then we'll wrap it up with you're being able to write questions. There's some paperwork over here where you can get questions, and we'll try to stump the band and see if you can ask a question we can't answer. But these guys, especially my friends here, are very good at it. So let's start with Steve, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dwayne. Again, I'm Steve Teixeira, and I'm here representing Tahoe Chamber, the other chamber in town. We're a bi-state chamber, and I'm the Director of Government Relations. This is a most insidious attack on private property rights and ownership. And one of the things that the opposition or the proponents of this insidious tax are claiming is that we bring no solutions to the table. Nothing could be further from the truth. The issue is they can go and they can get signatures by misleading people saying this is going to solve the housing problem. They can do that, and they did that, and it's on the ballot. But the hard work of solving housing takes going to meetings, day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out. That's the hard work that they don't want to do. And that's the hard work that we do. And so I've got a list of just some of the projects in the city that we have collectively or individually supported over the years. And I'm just going to read a brief description of them, because housing isn't just for person A or person B or person C. When you do housing in the community, it has to be for a wide variety of people and a wide variety of needs. So one of the big projects that's going on here in town, which took, even though the state of California donated the land, it still has taken years to actually construct this project because you have to use grant funds, and sometimes you're trying to put together lots of different funds. But at any rate, the bottom line is just down the street a piece on the other side of the Y, there is Sugar Pine Village. It's 248 units, and it's for people of certain income types. So it's about workforce housing, about having people who work in this community that may have a lower income, and this project is for them. It's 248 units, it's really a nice property, and it's just one of the things that we collectively and individually have supported. There's another one just down the street that's been in the community a long time. It's called Sierra Gardens, and it's also income eligible, but it's 76 units. And a couple of years ago, a lot of times these housing projects have a limitation. They could be deed restricted for 30 years or 40 years, whatever. And then it gets to the end of that, and it could expire. And the people that own the property could say, okay, we're done being deed restricted, we're going to be market rate now. And that was the issue that came up with this project. And a lot of us said, no, we think it should remain a deed-restricted property, and that came to pass. So that's 76 units of deed-restricted housing for our community that we preserved. Kelly Ridge is another one. It's here in town. It's 33 units, and it's specifically for people of older age, 62 and over, because we need to have housing for people my age now. So, and that was another thing that people proposed and we supported. And there's not too far away from that is the Aspens at South Lake Tahoe, which is 48 units, really nice. And we supported that, and I believe it was when Dwayne was on the South Tahoe PUD board, he went to the Public Utility District Board, and they couldn't waive the connection fees because you have to connect to your sewer and water. But what they could do was they could prorate the connection fees over time. And that really helped the developers be able to pencil out starting, and then they pay back the connection fees, right, Dwayne, over a period of time. So there's a lot of nuances here that, you know, again, going to meetings and being on top of these things over the period of time that we need to do. So those are some of the projects that are in town. There's a couple of other ones. The city has a lease to locals program that they offer some incentives to property owners to lease their properties. I think right now they have about 110 individuals in 40 properties. Another solution. Student housing at Lake Tahoe Community College. That's coming online. A lot of us supported their application to the state of California so they could build 100 units of student housing, which helps because the students need housing too. And if they didn't have housing on campus, they would be competing with other people for housing elsewhere in the community. And then we have an organization in the community called St. Joseph Community Land Trust, and they do affordable housing projects and initiatives. They help people, and they even do some where they build them and they sell so people can actually, on an affordable income, you can buy a home because not everybody just wants to rent forever. Some people would like to own a home. There's also a lot of other work that is tough to do. It's to sit in meetings and to try to get barriers to housing reduced. So code amendments at the city or code amendments at the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. So not so fun for people that just want to throw money at the problem. It's, you know, the sitting in all these meetings. And that's what we do. So we bring solutions. And there's a couple of other developments that are underway in the city. The city recently was declared by the state of California to be a pro-housing community. In other words, the city is doing a lot of good work on housing. So the whole notion that they have to take your money and threaten your privacy to solve the problem is incorrect. And we just wanted to set the record straight on that. Thank you.
It's great seeing so many people out tonight for this important cause. At our first town hall meeting in May, I did a longer presentation on the details of Measure N. And as I stated then, when you're running a campaign against a ballot measure, it's important to focus voters on what the measure actually says and what it actually does. Because we want to get to the meat of the campaign, I'm going to do an abbreviated version here compared to what I did last meeting, but I do want to give you the highlights so that when you're talking to members of the community, you have the facts that you can give them to show them why they should vote no. We've outlined 3 areas to concentrate on when discussing the flaws of Measure N: the massive cost structure of Measure N, the false claims of Measure N, and the huge invasion of privacy of Measure N. First, as Steve alluded to, Measure N will do nothing to address housing affordability in South Lake Tahoe, but it will create a massive cost structure to administer the measure. The first call on money for Measure N is the administration of the tax and the legal defense of that tax. We think it's entirely possible that most, if not all, of the tax could be taken up in the administration of that tax and the enforcement of the tax, as well as the legal defense. What's more, and this is important, while the tax does not start bringing money until 2027, the city will have to start to set up the massive bureaucracy to enforce it next year, which means the city may have to go into debt or cut other programs like public safety, parks, and the like, or use up its reserves to start setting up a system to administer a tax that we will not see any revenues from until 2027 if it passes. Now on to the false claims. First, if there's any money left over, it can go to 3 categories: roads or transit or housing. Housing is only one of those, and the authority on how much could go to housing is left to the hands of a city council that hasn't even been elected yet and won't get elected till after 2026. They have the authority to set the allocation to housing at 0 if they want. Furthermore, and we think most of you would agree on this, the proponents claim that this measure will encourage second homeowners to rent out their units to locals. But as we've seen even from the previous measures that ban VHRs in our city, this is not likely to happen. I talked a bit about the size and the scope of the bureaucracy the city will need to enforce Measure N if it passes. We think this is going to be massive and expensive and a huge invasion to everyone's privacy. The measure presumes that every single one of the 16,000 units in the city is actually vacant. And this measure requires all owners of all properties in the city to prove that they occupied their home for at least 183 days every year. You do have to do this every year. The city can go back up to 5 years after you filed for the occupancy to question whether you told the truth. And you're expected to have the records to prove it. Do you think you can actually prove to the government today how many days you lived in your home in 2019? You can't just say that you did, you have to prove it. The measure also does not state how an owner must prove they lived or had someone living in their unit. The city, has not and cannot say how they will track all these homes. It's again left up to a future city council to decide how aggressive they want to be. The city's authorized to do random audits. They can monitor your utility usage. Neighbors can report on each other. It is a huge invasion of privacy. We all know that from other cities that have tried this, mostly in Canada and actually Austria too, that it's been a huge burden to even comply. In fact, in some ski towns in Austria, ironically, they're talking about abandoning the tax because they find it costs more to administer the tax than what they actually collect. It's also important to note that renters are not exempt from this cost and the invasion of privacy in the measure. While it's the owner's responsibility of the property to pay the vacancy tax and report the occupancy, in order for a landlord to comply, they have to certify that a unit was occupied. They'll have to monitor their tenants to make sure they actually stayed in the house 183 days. Having a lease is not good enough. You actually have to potentially harass your tenants to get the information you need to prove they've been in that house for 183 days. They might even need to pass the tax eventually on to those renters if they can't get that proof. And even if you're a full-time resident, you may not be exempt from this tax. One, there's just the burden of you having to prove that you lived in your home. Second, as we like to say, life happens. Maybe you get a new job in the Bay Area where you have to work 5 days a week, so you get a condo there, but come home to Tahoe every weekend. You'll pay the tax. Maybe your parents in Sacramento get ill, and you have to care for them for a year. You'll pay the tax. Maybe as you get older, you decide to live near your kids, if they let you, in the winter in Southern California or Arizona or someplace warm, but you come back to summer here in Tahoe. You better pay attention to how many days you're away or you'll pay the tax. I hope I've given you a little sense of how bad this measure actually is, though I believe you already know it, but this is important for you to be able to pass this information on to those that don't know. We have a full FAQ of this measure on our website where you can get more details and even download a copy of those FAQs. And now, Sharon. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jerry, for doing such an amazing job.
High school dance here.
Well, is it a little bit cooler with the lights out? I don't know if that affects our production. If somebody wants to give me a high sign, if it's okay? Okay? Thumbs up. Okay. So thanks so much to Jerry for outlining this measure. It's my belief that governing shouldn't happen at the ballot box. That's not the best way to set policy. I don't believe that the proponents, when they wrote this initiative, understood that all of this was in there. I don't think that it is what was intended. However, it is what is in there. So if it passes, it's what we would all have to deal with. So I'm here to give the portion about the campaign itself. So make no mistake, we know that this is going to be very tough. It's very tough to convince folks that are young, folks that are maybe struggling, folks that are renters, that, you know, hey, someone else would pay this and it might be helpful to me. Why should they vote against it? So it's going to be very tough. Our opponents have also been way out in front of this. Just by drafting the initiative and going out and gathering the signatures, they have that head start. So it just is what it is. They've been promising that it's going to solve Tahoe's housing problems, but we have a genuine plan to win and defeat this thing. So we know that you all want to win. However, this is a very public setting, and we're on Zoom, and it's being recorded, so I can't give away too much of the secret sauce. I can't go into the very finer details, but I can give you an overview of the plan. I want you all to have confidence. Like Dwayne mentioned, we have been like the duck. It's paddling like mad underneath. You just can't see it, right? So we've been working very, very hard to establish a winning campaign. We want it to be research-based. We want it to be very smart. So we have done some initial polling and held some focus groups. We're honing in on the messages that will give us the best chance to convince voters to vote no. Our voter contact program is going to cover all the media outlets where voters get their information: newspapers, social media, of course, mailers, lots of mailers, signs. We'll be doing signs. We can't do them until 60 days prior to the election. So we do have to wait on those. People have been asking. And digital ads. We're going to do as much paid advertising as we can afford. I'll get to fundraising in a moment. But the best way to get someone's vote, honestly, is having those tough conversations. You need to talk neighbor to neighbor. You need to inform the second homeowners. We will also be doing phone calls, make sure that they are aware, but also just those conversations with friends and neighbors and residents, everyone who's a registered voter. We learned that during Measure T. We lost by 56 votes. So every conversation matters. 4th of July, I had a conversation with someone at a picnic, not even registered to vote. And he was like, I don't believe in politics. I don't want to vote for either of these guys running for president. I'm like, you know what? You can register to vote. You can skip everything, and you can just vote no on this. I am completely serious. And because after the conversation with him, he was like, after hearing about the initiative, he's like, this sounds ridiculous. And he's worried, honestly, not about himself, but about his neighbors. And so he has the power to register and vote no. And maybe it's not going to affect him, but then again, life happens, so it could. But he knows it's going to affect his neighbors that are primarily second homeowners. We are also going to ask you to be speaking up in the community and on social media. However, no Facebook fights, okay? Please, want to keep it don't let people bait you. Remain calm, but we want you to do that from talking points that we're going to give you. And we also do have social media channels on Facebook, X, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can share those things. We want you to bring up all the problems that Jerry just described with your circle of friends. And yes, when we get to it, we are going to be going door to door in your neighborhoods, all throughout the city, to convince voters to vote no. We're just going to try to have as many personal conversations in our circles as we can reach. We're going to also be making sure that we keep a list of all those conversations that we have. With voters that have told us that they were going to vote no, we're going to be following back up with them to make sure that when they get their ballot, that they complete their ballot and that they send that in to either by mail or to a vote center by that early voting deadline or by the absolute drop deadline. Campaign like this is going to be fueled by people power. And like Dwayne said, that is all of you. It's going to also be fueled by that paid advertising. Paid advertising costs a lot of money. So we've put together a really fantastic team. You already heard from a few of them. We do have some other folks that are involved. They are locals who have been here for a long time. They really know this community. They really care about this community and what happens to it. And we've also put together a team of campaign veterans who have already won tough fights like this one. They're experienced. They know what they're doing. And I can promise you the vast majority of the dollars that we are going to raise are going to go directly to that voter contact. It's not cheap, but it is the best way to reach voters. And that's where our money is going to go. I also want to be clear that while you're going to start seeing this campaign ramp up after tonight, especially on the social media campaign accounts, but most of the paid advertising is going to happen in those final 8 weeks leading up to the election. So right now, maybe you're feeling like not enough's happening. Not enough's happening. It's starting to ramp up. And then when that happens, you may start to say, oh my gosh, it's too much. No, stop. People's mailboxes are too full. But we're relying on the experts that have been involved in campaign to campaign to campaign and that have really, really good track records in winning these things. And so we're going to trust them. We're going to go with their recommendations. In the meantime, though, there are things that we can be doing now. So I'm going to get to that. We are going to be asking for volunteers. We have clipboards over here with sign-up sheets. We know that some of you have already indicated that you're interested, but this is a little bit more refined, where you're going to be able to indicate, I don't want to go out and talk to people, but I will do maybe some social media. Or I don't want to go door-to-door, door knocking, but I will make phone calls. Or I'm happy to do a sign when it's time. When it gets to that point, please let us know. Also, we will gratefully and graciously accept any checks today. You can also go online and donate via the website. There is a form, however, if you want to do a check, and that's just because this is a political campaign. There are FPPC filing requirements and some information. It is absolutely okay if you are not a South Lake Tahoe resident and you want to give us a check or donate to the campaign. And if you've already given, we've had some folks that have given some small amounts, and we absolutely understand if that's all you can give, we're grateful for it. But if you truly can give more, please give. It's going to really make a difference. And then if you agree to go door to door, you might have met John outside. He's the gentleman with the amazing tattoos. He's going to be coordinating our ground game, and that's going to be when we get to the point of actually getting an app where we know, okay, here's where a voter is located. Here's your precinct. We're going to send you out with a team. You're going to go knock on doors. Here's your talking points. Please note, how did the conversation go? Were they a yes? Were they a no? Were they undecided? And the goal is to really talk to those voters multiple times. We know that the other side is very well organized, and they will be doing the same. So we have to do it too. We need you to follow us on social media. Whatever your poison is, we're not on Nextdoor. I don't know if we will be, but again, Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, and share that content. Because the proponents, they have been very, very active on social media, and their followers, they've got a lot of followers. So we need to build our following. We need to continue to share the message. We hope that it will become viral, frankly. Again, yes, if you're going to agree to the sign in the yard, that's 60 days before Election Day. I don't know if that's exactly September 5th. I will find out. We don't want to break any rules. But lastly, we are going to need second homeowners to share their stories. So if you have a compelling story, we know that the opposition likes to paint the picture that all second homeowners are incredibly wealthy with huge mansions that are on the lake, and they sit empty for 50 weeks a year. And so we want to paint that real picture. We want to paint the truth for them. So you see that we've got a really incredible video crew here on site tonight. That's Brandy Brown and Tahoe Production Company, and we're going to work with them. We can arrange to have them come and record some video of you sharing your personal story. We want to know, how did you come to own your second home? How long has it been in your family? What sacrifices did you have to make in order to get your little slice of heaven up here in Tahoe? What drew you to Tahoe? Why do you love it here so much? What does an extra $500 bill every month, what would that mean to you in taxes? So we want to put a face on all of these stories so that when the voters go out to vote, it's not the picture that the opposition wants in their heads. So there's a lot that everyone here can do to help us win. We need your time. We do need your money. We need your determination. We need your passion. So with everything that we've said, we know that this is going to be a tough fight. But with your help and your support and this incredible team that we have been building, and thanks to Dwayne Wallace for starting this coalition and getting this all started, we know that we can win. And that's what I have. We're going to open it up for questions. However, the format for questions, because we are live stream and this is being recorded so that people can watch playback later, we're going to have some index cards and hand those out to you. If you could write down the question and pass it up.
So they want to know where can they find the information that the proponents of Measure In.
I think these are notes. So they want to know the proponents of Measure N. They want to know where meetings of Measure N. Do you want me to answer this?
Yeah, and you can. Just in case, The women in the room, please help the men with the big words. Okay, we have our first question.
Okay, and now you all know that my secret is I do wear glasses sometimes, and I don't have them on right now, so please bear with me. So the first question is, where can we find information that the proponents have of Measure N? So if you're looking for information on the other side, they do have a website, and you can just search online for the South Lake Tahoe vacancy tax. And I believe it's the Locals for Affordable Housing is their group. And they also have a very big presence on Instagram. I believe they have an account there. Where are the meetings of the proponents for Measure N? I believe that they are planning a Zoom. I would think that that was in the papers, in the Tribune, on the 24th. So they're going to be hosting a Zoom session. And then I want to know, you want to know what the opponents are saying. So I would recommend that if you want to know what the opponents are saying is to join into their Zoom. If you are not really familiar with this, clearly we are one side. You know, go get informed about the other side. Go look at their website, look at their social media, attend their Zoom session, ask questions. Again, we've tried to highlight what we see now that we're diving into this measure of all of the unintended consequences. I don't believe that the proponents intended for these things. However, again, if it passes, it will be law. And then it will be a question of the voters then voting to change that law. The city council will not be empowered to make any changes at that point. So that's a very important thing to know. We really believe in housing, and we believe that there are issues that need to be addressed, just like Steve outlined. However, we feel that this is not the way to handle it. So there's one question. Lots of questions coming. Do we know how Santa Cruz defeated a similar measure? This was last year. I believe it was last year. And it's my understanding that in Santa Cruz, the reason why the voters chose to vote no had to do with the privacy, invasion of privacy, and the cost of the bureaucracy. And that's why they defeated it. Okay.
I've got one. I can
You
actually
can do
use
that.
this. This question is, if you have a renter whose job takes them out of town 2 to 3 days a week, do the days that they are away count as occupied since they have a monthly lease? Or do only the days that they are there count? I've been reading on the one in Vancouver, and the problem is well, the nine worst words in the English language, according to Ronald Reagan, was, "We're from the government and we're here to help." And the problem is we don't know. In Vancouver, they only have to go back 2 years, but they're having to prove what doctor they went to, where they bought gas, those kinds of things. And they're being held up. Now, it's a different country, but it'll be bureaucrats in charge of it, and that's the problem. So the answer is, we don't know, because those rules have not been written yet. They're generally, but I think we should assume that we would have problems with people whose job it is to do those things, just like the IRS. So we don't know for sure, but maybe. So now, will there be town hall style public debates with the proponents of Measure N? We don't think so. There might be. We would love to do it. We don't think that they will do it because we'll have the actual text with us. So, do the casinos have a play in this measure? If so, are they for or against? I don't think we know the answer to that.
They're not for it.
They're not, the people I've talked to were not for it. But we haven't heard that they've done any,
There are articles online that I found in which the casinos, since Measure T, have seen an uptick. And the four tourist area by the casinos are not opposed to T or N.
Now,
So I just found that curious.
I apologize, the mics probably didn't pick that up, and I'm being instructed by Brandy to just take the written ones. That's something. No, it's not your, What happens for a homeowner in a leap year who is home for 183 days? I think this person might be related to me. This person has 2 rental houses and will pass the entire cost of the tax on to them. That really goes to the question of whether the rents would be affordable or not, because as you know, the cost of having a house, especially with property taxes, is pretty high. Go ahead.
The questions are coming in fast and furiously. This is amazing, all of you. Okay, so this one, I'm hearing both that the fines collected will go towards legal fees, but then I hear too that the city attorney is on a retainer and that this will not cost the city and that more money for legal fees. Which is it? I find it very hard to believe that even though they have a city staff person who is an attorney, that this is not going to cost them. I mean, it may not cost them in the dollars, but it certainly is going to pull her away from everything else. And so if that's the case, then it will slow down whatever other legal work that the city needs done, and then they might have to outsource for legal work. So that is going to cost the city, and that's our taxpayer dollars that we submit. So, right, again, proponents say, oh yeah, nope, it's not going to cost anything. It didn't really cost anything for Measure T. I really believe that this is a different animal. So again, it's an unknown, but it's my opinion that it's going to cost. It's absolutely going to cost. And they wrote that into the measure for a reason. Why would you write it into the measure if you didn't think that there would be a cost to defend it? You want to take?
Okay, this question states, how do we talk to tenants to convince them the Measure N is not good for them? I think this is a really important one because there are many renters who are voters in the city limits. So if you're a landlord and you, of course, have a good relationship with your tenants, I think it's vital to talk them about the privacy issue regarding this measure. As was discussed earlier with Dwayne's question as well as the presentation given, that we do have to have the tenants prove that they are physically in those units for the 183 days. So in that example of a month where the tenant may be gone for more than half the month, that absolutely counts against them for the vacancy, and you have to prove otherwise. To tell the tenant that we would like to have a copy of your proof, utility bill or otherwise, is absolutely going down that privacy avenue, and I think that resonates highly. We heard that from Santa Cruz. It resonated with those constituents. So I think that really is a vital, vital part of our success measurement. So please do talk to tenants if you're if you're a landlord or if you know renters in the community.
Okay, this one, I'm not sure that I understand, so I'm hoping that I captured this. Having both been in law enforcement for 30 years, California Penal Code is that if you restrict someone's movements, that constitutes kidnapping. I don't believe that they're trying to restrict someone's movements, but it's more that we have to prove where we are and that we're actually in our homes for the 183 days. And I don't know if it was alluded to yet, but Bob Poet did a great stumper quiz on social media around the 4th of July, where he asked, okay, if you're in your property January 1 through June 30, and then July 1st hits, and you decide you're going to go on to your next adventure for the rest of the year, are you subject to the tax? And you'd think, okay, well, that's 6 months. I've been in my property. I should be fine. Actually, no, especially if it's not a leap year. But even if it is a leap year, you don't quite make it. And so that's what this is coming to, is that it's the property, it's not just leased, it's not just owned, it's occupied.
But more so, the actual...
I'm sorry, Bob, we can't take comments from the comments because we're doing the live stream and the sound. Yes, Bob Poet on social media.
Okay, here's one. Can we get the Howard Jarvis Association involved? Is John Messina here? John Messina, as the Tahoe taxpayer, Association, I believe they're affiliated. He's been extremely active. And I've contacted the Howard Javers group in the Placerville area, and they're just waiting to stand by. If we need them, they'll jump in, and they've been kept apprised of everything we're doing.
So this next question, do you have statistical data that prove the proponent's data about housing is incorrect? What we presented tonight is the beginning of our campaign and the beginning of our arguments. The statistical data that Steve presented talking about the housing benefits that have, the affordable housing benefits that we have seen already and the ones that are in the works. We have also discussed housing as it relates to what the proponents think is going to happen if this measure does pass. They do believe that a certain percentage, they've thrown the number 20 or 30%, of homeowners who are assessed this tax will choose to rent their units. We do know, as stated earlier, that that is not a true statement. That is as far from the truth as we can get, but we will use history as our guiding principle on that. We can use the VHR ban as a guiding principle on that. We can use anecdotal evidence as a guiding principle on that as well as we go out for our arguments relating to that question. Next question, I know that if Measure N does not pass, that the proponents will change the language for future votes. I believe we need to consult attorneys to determine the legality of the measure. Have we started moving in this direction? We do have experts on our staff, as Sharon mentioned. They have history with other measures of similar caliber. They understand the legality of the measure. There are lawsuits being fought in other communities throughout the state and the country. So we believe at this time with our experts that we are in a good position to defeat the measure. Of course, if we need to go to attorneys at a certain point, we will absolutely pull that trigger. But at this point, our concentration is on the defeating of the measure. It's on using the expertise of those experts we have hired and brought onto our team to assist us, and of course, all of you to help us get to that goal.
Okay. This one is, how does this tax affect parcels that are not built out? Will empty lots be taxed? Not to our knowledge. That's about the only thing it doesn't apply to that we've found. Another is, my daughter has a home in South Lake Tahoe. I have a vacation home. My daughter will live in my home in the winter for 120 days, and I will spend the summer 80 days. Will that work? My guess is probably, if the same family is occupying. There has been one group that looked at the word occupy and the definition. I think it was Dave Jenkins brought it to our attention. Occupy and vacant are two different things. Vacant means what you'd see, for instance, the Oakland measure talks about vacant property, but those are ones, by vacant, they mean where people are occupying it that aren't supposed to, that are doing drugs in there, or there's no furniture in there. But occupied means that there is furniture in there, that you do have things there, and you intend to come back to that. Those are two different things. And that's a question for the attorneys. And hopefully if we just smash this thing at the ballot box, that maybe they'll go away. And we should point out that Mrs. Wallace is the city council member. When she first alerted us, it was a tax that would be a transfer tax. Then they tried a transient occupancy tax. Then they tried to raise the minimum wage to $23 when it was, the governor just did $20. So I think Jerry, said it, we don't know how many times the new taxes are going to be brought up, but we have to, if we beat this one badly, maybe they'll go away, maybe. But that's at the ballot box for city council, so, all right.
I've got one. This is more just a comment that goes on with the occupancy. In the proposal, it doesn't actually define occupancy. Does it mean 1 hour, 1/2 day, overnight, or just going in and using the bathroom?
He looked
Okay.
at me because I used to be on the utility district board. Our saying was, it all rolls downhill, and we're down here waiting.
I have a question here. We know that some of us get our news from Reno. That's another insidious situation because we can't get news from Sacramento, who actually has news about Tahoe. But so the question is, who gives the news about this to Reno? So that has been my job, to make sure that I'm communicating with the media in Reno as well as Sacramento and the Bay Area and of course locally. So we do have relations with some of those folks. We had to scramble to get ahead of the proponents because they have a person who's with their group that was a professional public information officer. So, but we've been catching up and we have our channels open to Reno, to Sacramento, to the Bay Area. And if any of you have somebody that you know in the media that you can let us know through the website or whatever, or call us or see us tonight, say, I know so-and-so who's a reporter for whatever, that would help us build our media list. So thanks for the question.
Okay, and I've got one that's a real estate question, which all of you who are second homeowners are probably concerned about. And do you believe that all property values in South Lake Tahoe will decrease when a significant portion of buyers will be obligated to pay the tax here, but not elsewhere in Tahoe? And we believe that this is part of the goal of the proponents to try to engineer the market to bring some of the pricing down to where they perceive it's a little bit more affordable for those in the workforce to be able to buy. The short answer is we don't know. We do know that we are already seeing buyers kind of scared away by this. I'm hearing about escrows that are being canceled, actually right when we were learning if the measure was going to qualify or not. I had someone who was like, I've got a buyer who will go forward with an escrow, but if this qualifies for the ballot, they're backing out. So we know that it is absolutely already affecting the real estate market. However, we also know that this is an international destination. Like we saw with COVID, we had a huge demand of folks that wanted to live here, move here, at least during that time. And it's being an international destination, there are a lot of buyers out there with a lot of money who would be more than happy to purchase a property and just pay a tax. So we don't really know the answer to that question, but we are very concerned and we're going to absolutely have to watch this.
This question is one that I'll have to qualify. Can we proceed to implement a recall of the person who is pushing in? One of the things I said that we are not is we are not a political organization in the sense that we're promoting certain candidates, but we believe in doing first things first. It's most important to defeat this tax. Then it's next important to elect people because there's 2 seats up. Then perhaps that will come. Doing all the things at once, we might do one of them or all of them poorly. And so the coalition was put together to defeat this measure. That doesn't mean that other people can't do it or that individuals among us wouldn't be right on board with that. It's just that as a coalition, our main focus is to stop them from taking what you've earned. And then we'll go from there.
Okay, and I've got one. If I use my house for 4 months, will I pay $6,000 or a portion? Unfortunately, the way that the tax is written, you pay the entire tax. You have to be there 183 days or more, so there's no prorations. My property taxes are $1,000 per year. Is $6,000 fair? I think you can guess that you are preaching to the choir, and we absolutely do not believe that that is fair. We also don't believe that taxing a property that is an 800 square foot cabin and a 5,000 square foot home at the same rate is fair. And is there a legal challenge to the measure? The measure cannot be challenged unless and until it passes. So it's going to go through the process. And the city has been very clear that they want to allow the voters to decide, just like with Measure T. So we're going to have to do our best to defeat it there. And it says over, there's more. Oh, if I rent my home out for 6 months and I want to spend time in my cabin, but the renter doesn't move out, how do I get into my house? So this gets into where, we from the realtor perspective, and I believe that the coalition in general, we don't feel that anyone should be forced to become landlord, and you should not be forced to sell your house. So clearly there are issues with becoming a landlord. There's a lot of hoops, things that you have to go through, and then yes, sometimes there are issues with tenants that refuse to leave, and that's a big problem.
And there are a lot of legal issues that have been raised by people such as yourselves who either are attorneys or know attorneys. And there are laws in California, one of them is called the Ellis Act. So most of you are probably aware of that it says that neither a state nor a local government can force somebody to rent out their property. And then there's, of course, the First Amendment. There's about 5 different amendments. The most important is the Commerce Clause. So we urge you to get as educated as you can on those. If you just look up those constitutional amendments, you'd be amazed. So this could be years in the making, but we want to, like I said, want to try to crush it as best we can at this ballot box and then go from there.
My comment on what Sharon just mentioned is that these are the stories that resonate with the local community. The $1,000 in property tax with a $6,000 assessment, the what if I want to get into my unit in 180 days and the tenant does not leave. These are the stories that we encourage you to bring to us. They have to be real, because there will be vetting on the other side of the reality of those stories. So whether they're anonymous or hopefully you can bring some legitimacy to it, I think the more of those stories, the better this tips well into our favor.
Okay, and then there's a quick question here. Any status on the San Francisco lawsuit? And it's my understanding that the next decision will be in the late fall, early winter. So it's not going to be in time for this election, unfortunately. And we know that the proponents based this vacancy tax that they're proposing on Berkeley. There's a question here, focus on the CPI escalator. And thank you for this, because I don't believe that this is in our FAQ, and it's something that we could add. There is an escalator clause in the vacancy tax initiative. Over the course of a decade, at second homeowners could pay $80,000 to $100,000 in tax. I haven't done that math. That sounds insane. It's right, and I believe that's why they established the tax the way that they did. They did not want to be subject to Prop 13. That's why it's not different rates for different size properties. They want to be able to increase it based on the CPI. I think that might be all the questions. Were there more?
One question that somebody asked me is, if this passes, does the city council have to defend it? According to the measure, it says they do. According to the city attorney, they don't. That'd be another lawsuit all by itself, but it's important because who gets elected might be able to determine whether they direct the city attorney to defend it or not. And wouldn't it be ironic to have your tax dollars defending something you voted against? So, and I just wanted to point out, the parking lot meetings are sometimes the best. And so after this is over, we would welcome you to talk to any of us out in the parking lot about our own personal views, but as a coalition, we're sticking together.
And before you go, I don't know if there are more questions, please feel free to pass some up, but we do have the clipboards on the side. We're going to ask for you to please sign up to volunteer, and we are going to please ask for donations if you can. Really, it's going to depend on what we're able to raise, what we'll be able to do. And thank you. Thank you for all of you for making the time to be here. Thank you for all of you on the live stream. Thank you for those of you watching the recording and learning about this. This is a really, really big, it's probably the biggest policy issue that we've faced in this community, maybe ever.
If we don't have our checkbook with us, where do we give you the money?
If you want to write, the question was, if we don't have our checkbook with us, how do we give you the money? Well, there is a link online if you are comfortable using a credit card and making a donation that way. However, we know a lot of folks would prefer to write a check, and we are going to make it as easy as possible for you. We're going to accommodate you. You can come, we're kind of serving as a headquarters here. You can come to our office. We're open 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Again, there are forms on the side of the room here for donations. Because of the FPPC filing requirements, we do need some information about our donors for you to fill that out on the form and sign it. You do need your occupation. However, retired apparently is an occupation. I would like that job someday. So that's how you could donate with a check, and we would be very, very grateful to receive your donations. There are no limits for local ballot initiatives. So if someone won the Powerball and wants to completely fund this campaign, you know, please see me after the meeting.
Any other written questions? Yes.
I heard that if this passes here, they want to go to other cities around the lake. Are there
Yeah,
other cities that would
we're the domino. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So we're going to have to repeat the
we're-
questions. The folks on the live stream can't hear from the audience.
The question was, is it true that we're just one of the dominoes in the line? Is that a good paraphrase?
No, that's not my question.
Go ahead.
That was a statement that it is going to move to other cities around the lake. Are there other cities willing to help us with time and money to defeat this so
Oh.
it doesn't spread?
Are there other cities who will help us? You know, we hadn't thought about that. I know Placerville is very interested. The Chamber of Commerce there is standing by. Their Howard Jarvis group is standing by because it's going to go throughout. And we're actually identified as the first big domino because Tahoe's so famous. So,
Tahoe City, Truckee, they're all going to get it. They're not cities. Oh, they're not. Okay, thank you.
yeah, so there's different counties. They would do it in a county or a city. And there's cities. One of the fallacies that our opponents are saying is that this is just like Utah and other places. It's actually not. Those were differences in property tax assessments. They're not exactly like this one. This is a little bit more unique, and so we have to fight it in a unique way. The people that we have working with us have defeated these about 90% of the time. So, but it's not cheap. We felt like, you know, to be the best, outwork the rest, but also bring the cash. And so we really do need the funds. We've done pretty good, but we've got a long battle ahead of us. And a lot of us are just volunteers. So that's that. Can you write it down? They can't hear you if you ask a question.
So over here on the side of the room, on the tables, we have clipboards and forms, and we're asking folks to fill those out, and we'll collect those at the end. And we're compiling, we do have some lists that have been started, but again, as I mentioned, we are going to start next week to make this space available for phone banking and provide messaging. That's how we're going to start with the second homeowners, and then we're going to move on to the voter contact.
And we have a pretty good idea of the age group, demographics, who are for it, who's against it, who's in the middle, and how to get to them, including reaching out to all the absentee homeowners. The Tahoe Keys Property Association has done a good job of that. The Community Patriots have. Some others have, but we're also doing that too. Because that's who has the most to lose.
So this goes back to we can't give away too much of our secret sauce. The other side is I'm almost positive that hi, you're probably on the live stream. Welcome. We can talk offline.
Lots.
A lot.
So dig deep into your pockets and ye shall be saved.
Are any of you getting paid to do this?
I'm not.
No.
So I'm employed by the Association of Realtors, but I am working way more than my full-time job, so that's all volunteer. I'm on salary.
So, and I run the chamber for free because I really enjoy it. So, thank you. So please don't leave without signing up for something. Everybody has their own gifts that they can do, either financial gifts or gift of gab, or be able to put up signs, or be able to lick envelopes, whatever. Just sign up for something, because we're not going to let you leave till you do. That's just the way to. We got people. It is against the law. We know that. Any other written questions? Then we'll be here, and we'll make sure that you can talk to us about other things, or out in the parking lot. Just chase us down. And we really, really appreciate you turning it out. We know you have other things to do, but this is important. And we're on your side. You're on our side. Let's go get them.